It's Bob Sansevere here with Brian Murphy and Pioneer Press Deputy Sports Editor John Pluym. Brian, you have seen every game that Donvan McNabb has played as a Viking, and it's not like he's ascending. They did get a win the other day, but it was more in spite of him than because of him. Do you see any change that Leslie Frazier talked about, well, things are fixable? I don't know how do you fix a guy who can't throw a 15-yard pass and it skips off the turf?
Well, you can't. I mean, you can pound some more, mechanical drills and try to work on things like that. But, this is not something that just happened overnight. I mean, he's been since 2009. I mean, he's been on a steady decline, both in his percentage and in his rating, in his ability to lead a team. I mean, there was such a controversy last year in Washington when Mike Shanahan benched him. But clearly he saw some diminishing skills that are clearly on display, and he's not acknowledging it. I don't think Leslie Frazier's acknowledging it. I think at the end of the day, he probably gives them a better chance than Christian Ponder might, and I don't know if you necessarily want to throw him out to the Wolves against Chicago or Green Bay.
But does he give him a better chance than Joe Webb might? Because Webb has some mobility, he's young, and he did help them win games last year.
He did, and I think that's a viable question to ask because I don't see McNabb improving at this point, but nobody's acknowledging that.
Now, John, name me, because you're an encyclopedia on these things, but name me the last time, when he was younger, McNabb did scramble a lot and he ran. But name me a quarterback who did scrambling and running, who played, Fran Tarken's the only one I could think of, but who had longevity in his career. Steve Young played into his 30s. However,
38 years old.
However, he didn't start playing. I mean, the battering on his body wasn't as bad because he didn't play when he was younger.
Well, the last guy who could run the ball and throw the ball and was really good at reading defenses was Elway. I mean, he struggled a little bit at the start of his career, but toward the end, I mean, he was still a guy who could move around. He led the Broncos to 2 straight Super Bowls. I think he might be the only quarterback who retired from the NFL and won 2 world championships. So he's pretty much been the only guy that's been able to do it. He completed more than 60% of his passes those last 2 seasons. He was the MVP of the last Super Bowl. Well, I think he threw for 338 yards in that game.
Well, I'm not turning this into an Elway thing. I wanted McNabb.
But it's rare for a quarterback at that age to be able to do that. Unless you want, Randall Cunningham didn't get to the Super Bowl, but he certainly had an incredible year when he was here with the Vikings in 1998. He threw all those touchdowns. He had a great receiver in Moss. Now the thing that McNabb doesn't have, he doesn't have the horses on the outside to be able to do the things that everybody else is.
But can he reach the guys if they went deep or with any kind of accuracy?
I don't know.
Like I said, how many times have you seen him throw short and skid? That one pass in the flat, it was a 15-yard pass, and I think he was 10 yards off the mark. I mean, I know sometimes the ball gets away from him, but in a game, you shouldn't have it get away from you half a dozen or more times.
Well, the common thread in all of this is his quarterback's coach and coordinator back in Philly was Brad Childress. So if you want to take a really good look at the flaws of this man, they probably started with Mr. Childress, and he could explain that in more depth. Are you saying when he left?
So you're saying they should bring Childress back, perhaps as the quarterback's coach or consultant? Is that what you're saying, John?
I'm not saying that.
I mean, he had one of his better years in 2009 in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But the problem was he clearly isn't either working in the offseason or working enough during the season to maintain his skills, because what happened in Washington last year wasn't an anomaly. It's clearly a trend. He's trending downward. The numbers don't lie.
Well, he looks like if it was baseball, it would be the equivalent of dead arm syndrome. Because there's times when there are some passes he makes that are, hey, he's fine, everything's going to be okay, but then the next pass or so, he is incredibly inconsistent and erratic, and that's the biggest problem the Vikings are going to have going forward this year is getting consistent play out of him.
And I think it's indicative too what the Vikings did at the end of the first half, that they have zero confidence in his ability to either manage the game or at least work the 2-minute offense to get some more points. Yes, you're up 28-3, but you're at the 48-yard line of the Cardinals. You can't trust him to make a couple of passes to get you in field goal range.
I've never seen a team boot off the field with a 28-3
Well, and that's
lead.
an excellent point, because that's what Shanahan did to him last year when he was in Washington. They benched him during the 2-minute drill and put Rex Grossman on the field. So, apparently Shanahan, like Murph's saying, he knew what was coming with this guy, and it's not going to get better in these last 10 football games.
The question I think that'll be interesting is, Leslie Frazier is going to back him as long as he can. I think, the problem Leslie has is that he staked a lot of his reputation on Donovan because he pursued him. He wanted to get Donovan in the offseason. He's committed to him. He's also committed to Ponder in the sense that he was in the draft room when they selected him. But what you have now is you've got a coach that, obviously is scrambling to pull all the right levers. This is a guy that he staked a lot of his reputation, at least for this season, on. I don't know how much more patience he can have with them. I mean, Leslie's not going to be a guy that's going to come out and like Shanahan, make those kind of harsh moves, but he's got to be thinking in the back of his mind, the leash is getting shorter.
Now, Brian, you mentioned committed. How committed are the Vikings to staying in Minnesota with what's becoming a mess in trying to get that team to Arden Hills, and also the latest development with Los Angeles and the Raiders maybe wanting to move there again?
Well, a couple of big developments. Obviously, the death, Al Davis's death over the weekend puts that franchise in flux. They were already rumored to be possibly trying to get out of Oakland again anyway, and depending on who takes over that team, I mean, they could be in play.
Well, the Sun's supposed to take over, right?
Sun should take it over. I mean, it is there, but, it depends on what is he going to want? Is he going to want to maintain it? Is he going to want to... he could probably get a hefty price for it from the LA people who want to move it. But the biggest development was just this word came out today from the LA Times out of the owners' meetings in Houston that Ed Roski, who's got the competing deal out near Orange County from the AEG downtown stadium, has basically said, "Look, I'm not gonna ask for an ownership stake right now. I'm willing to negotiate with the land that I have. The land's yours around the stadium," and that would kind of play into what Ziggy Wolf is looking to do in Arden Hills, which is to commercialize the area. The point is, momentum is building for the downtown site and for the inland site in the city of industry, and nothing is happening here.
And that's an alarming thing, John, because if it goes to a referendum, which it appears it will, everything everyone believes is that it will be voted down by voters. And frankly, I don't know that that's the wrong. People should have a say in it.
But they didn't have a say in it with the Twins.
That doesn't mean it was right.
It doesn't, but if you're not going to do it with one, you can't do it with the
You're talking
other.
about different counties and different structures.
It also may be a moot point because they're going to put it on the ballot in November of 2012, and the LA
too late.
Vikings might be in Week 10 by then.
Well, they already have. Wouldn't be the first team from Minnesota to bring their purple and gold. Anyway, I'm sure in the weeks, months, years, and millennia ahead, we'll know whether it's the Minnesota Vikings or the LA Vikings. We'll see you later.